For our multiplying fractions, this is different than adding and subtracting because you don't need common denominators, which kind of takes away a step, makes it a little bit easier. The one thing that's different, again, another thing is you can't use a mixed number, okay? Which means that your fraction has to look like a straight up and down fraction. So either a regular fraction or an improper fraction. And then you just multiply straight across. Examples I've got for you here. This right here, 4/5 times 3/8, check. This would work out just fine. We could do that just fine without a problem. Now, if you had something like this that had a whole number and had a mixed number, or maybe just a mixed number and a fraction, we've got to make the fractions look like this and make the fractions look like this, where there's a number on top, a number on the bottom, and nothing else. So if we were to do this problem, we would want to make sure we changed 4 1/5 to 21/5 and change 7 to 7/1. Now this problem is in a format that is usable. Alright, first example to put down here is 6/10 times 4/5. Now I'm going to show you this, I'm going to write it again right here, but I'm going to show you this two different ways because there's a technique you can use anytime you've got fractions like this that makes your job a little bit easier. Okay, I could simply just do this problem and get straight across 24/50ths, and then I would need to reduce that down, which I think you could divide both of these by 2. So if I divided both of these by 2, I would end up with 12 and 25. 12/25ths, that would be your answer. Now, something you can do is we call cross division. Okay? Cross division just helps you reduce things before you start. And this really won't be so big for this one because the numbers we ended up here weren't that big. But when we get into big mixed number problems where we have to change to big improper fractions, this comes in really handy. How you do this is if I've got two numbers diagonal from each other that have something that can go into both of them, like 6 and 5, there's nothing that goes into both 6 and 5 besides 1, so we can't do that. But 10 and 4, if we go crossways here, we know that 2 goes into both 10 and 4. So before we start the problem, I can always divide this and this by 2. Okay, so if I do 10 divided by 2, that's 5. If I do 4 divided by 2, that's 2. Now I can do the multiplication problem. 6 times 2 is 12. 5 times 5 is 25. So it's almost like I just did the reducing before we started the problem. This is something that I would strongly recommend for some of the bigger problems. Alright, let's start by putting this one in the format we need because we can't use any mixed numbers. I should add to this or whole numbers. Our fraction has to look like top, bottom. Okay, that's the only thing that's going to work for this. So if I do 3 1/7, okay, 3 times 7, 3 groups of 7 is 21, plus our extra 1/7 would be 22. So I will put 22/7. This one's fine, times 14/20. Okay. Now, what we can do here is what I talked about before, and I'll leave it up to you whether you want to use that or not, but I really think it's helpful if you can find some matches to do that cross division first. So I'm going to put the problem up here twice, just in case you don't use this or if you do, but I think it's really helpful. So I'm going to use it down here. Okay, something that goes into both 22 and 20 that I could do my cross division. Well, they're both even, so 2 goes into both of them. So I'll just give myself an old cross out there, 11. 20 divided by 2 would be 10. Now if I look crossways here, 7 and 14, 7 goes into both of those. 7 divided by 7 would be 1. 14 divided by 7 is 2. Now if I do my multiplication straight across, 11 times 2, 22. 1 times 10 is 10. Now we're still going to have to change this back to a mixed number. 10 goes into 22 twice with 2 left over. 2 2/10 which is also the same as 2 and 1/5 if I cut both of these in half. Now, let's go to the one up here in case you didn't do this. Okay, 22 times 14. So you're going to have some bigger numbers that you're going to be starting with here. Okay, so 22 times 14, and we can still make this work. 22 times 14 is 308. 7 times 20 I know is 140. Okay, so now the problem is a little bit bigger. Okay, so 140 goes into 308 twice, and I think 140 times 2 is 280. Okay, so my leftover amount would be 280 up to 300 would be 20, and then we have 8 more, so that would be 28. Okay, so now we just need to reduce, and let's see here. 2 goes into both of those. So we're now down to, let me see if I can write it down here. We're now down to 2, and if I cut both of those in half, I'd have 14 and 70. Okay. Cut both of those in half, I've got 2 and 7, 35. Cut both of those not in half because that doesn't work, but it's 7 and 35, so 7 goes into both of those. 7 divided by 7 would be 1. 35 divided by 7 is 5. 2 and 1/5. Okay, so you can choose if you don't like to use this or it's not possible, because some of you won't be able to do it. You're going to have to do the long way. All right, 6 times 4/5. We got to get this in a format we can use. And a format we can use is, this is already a fraction with a top and a bottom, so we're good. This is not. So we need to give our 6 over 1. Now, if you're going for the cross division to start with to make it easier, forget about it, because I don't think you can do it here. There's nothing that goes into 6 and 5 besides 1. There's nothing that goes into 4 and 1 besides 1. So you're stuck how it is. So we just have to go straight across. 6 times 4 is 24. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 goes into 24 4 times, which would be 5 times 4 is 20. So it looks like we would have 4 left over. So we should have 4 and 4/5 for our final answer here. Alright, last one before you do some on your own here. 2 1/4 times 2/3. Okay, this one is formatted just fine. This one's not. Okay, so I need to get this one how it needs to be here. Looks like we've got 2 groups of 4, which would be 2 times 4 is 8, plus our extra 4th is going to be 9/4. And it looks like we've got times 2/3. Okay. If you're going to do your cross division, this one looks like it'll work. So I'll write this twice here, just in case you're not doing it. But I would recommend it if you can. If we do that up here, the 9 and the 3, 3 goes into both of those. So if I do 9 divided by 3, I get 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. I just put 3 into both of those, divided both of them by 3. 4 and 2. 2 can divide into both of those. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. This problem's pretty easy now. 3 times 1, 3. 2 times 1, 2. 3 halves. 3 halves would make 1 whole and 1 left over. So that would be 1 and 1/2. If you did it this way, 9 times 2 is 18. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 goes into 18 one time, and that would be 6 left over, 6/12. And then 1 and 6/12 is the same thing as 1 and 1/2. Here are our problems for you to try out. Some of them you might be able to use the cross division, some of them you might not. But I'll leave it up to you whether you use that or not. But I think it's easier if you do, if you can, because you have less work to do at the end. But I'm going to leave that up to you. Try these. Watch the video. You check and see how you do. Ask any questions you have. Alright, I put this on here twice because I think we can use the cross division here if we need to. Okay, so I'm going to start the top one with the cross division. The 10 and the 3 I can't do anything with because there's nothing that goes into 10 and 3 whole. 8 and 6 we're good though because 2 goes into both of those. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I've got 4/10 times 3/3. 4 times 3 is 12. 10 times 3 is 30. If I reduce that down, 3 goes into both of those, I know. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 30 divided by 3 is 10. And then if I divide both of those by 2, 2/5 is my answer. Now, interestingly enough about this one, I just kind of noticed this is 4/10 times 3/3. Well, 3/3 is one whole. So basically 4/10 times a whole would still be 4/10, which is what we got there without doing any of the other stuff, and then it just reduces to 2/5. Now, if you did it the long way, 8 times 3, 24. 10 times 6, 60. 6 goes into both of those. That's probably the one most people will think. I think 12 does too, but we'll do 6. 24 divided by 6 is 4. 60 divided by 6 is 10. Then we've got the same thing we had up here. Divided by 2 and you get 2/5. Alright. Formatted this correctly. We need to do that. We've got fraction, fraction, top and bottom, but that's not fraction, top and bottom. 5/1, 5/1. Okay? If I'm doing my cross division first, can't do anything with the 1 and the 10, but the 5 and the 25 we definitely can. 5 goes into both of those. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 25 divided by 5 would be 5. Now this makes the problem a lot simpler. 1 times 10 is 10. 1 times 5 is 5. 10/5 is 2 wholes. 5 went into 10 twice. Down here, if you just did it straight up, 5 times 10 is 50. 1 times 25 is 25. And we get the same thing. 25 goes into 50 2 whole times. Alright, we need to format this mixed number correctly here because we need top and bottom. We can't have any whole numbers sitting out here. So that would be 8 groups of 3 would be 24. Our extra 2/3, 25, 26. So this is going to be 26/3. So I'll just erase this. 26/3. So that means this is 26/3. One thing I can do to shrink this down is that's not going to do me any good right there, but the 3 and the 3 will. 3 goes into both of those exactly once. So 3 goes into 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So now I go straight across. I got 26 and I got 5. And 26/5. 5 goes into 26 5 times, which would be 25, leaving me with 1 left over. 5 1/5. Down here, if you did it straight up, I know the bottom's going to be 15. 26 times 3. 20 times 3 is 60, and 18. That'd be 78. Okay. So now we got to figure out how many 15s, and I'm just going to go like by a clock here. Let's see, 15, 30, 45, 60, and then after that would be 75. So that would be 5 times. So I'll just put this down here just so you know. 15 times 5 is 75. So when we're going to figure out the leftover, here's 75, here's 78. That would be 3 left over. 3/15. And if I divide this down, 3 goes into both of those once. So we're going to have 5 1/5.